Good morning. I may end up doing this show with my seat pushed back a little bit. I feel like I've already done a day's work. Been on Zoom as well with Times Radio this morning. Let me get rid of my hostess with the mostess badge there, because I think we all know who I am. Good morning, everyone. How the devil are you doing? Yeah, I was another phone call, another Zoom call, talking about the demolition of Grenfell. So I've now done the Times newspaper, I've done BBC Radio 5 Live, and I've now done Times Radio as well. And do you know the weird thing? The weird thing is I've been asked the same question time and time again. How will it be done? How long will it take? Will it be sensitive and delicate, bearing in mind the emotional nature of the entire project? Nobody's asked, why is it coming down? Should it stay up as a memorial? What about we check the integrity of the building? How about that as a starting point? Yeah, very, very strange, but that's the way the press works, unfortunately. And also there is this kind of mob mentality. I've mentioned this before when I was up at Didcot the day after the Didcot collapse, nearly 9 years ago in just a couple of weeks. I went up, I was invited up there by Sky TV. So I went up and did an interview with Sky. And while I was talking to Sky, there was a woman lurking in the background looking at me suspiciously. And, okay, that's not unusual. Finished my interview with the Sky, was literally going to get in my car and come back home again. And she said, "Oh, excuse me, I'm from ITV. I don't know who you are, but could you come and speak to us?" I was, "Yeah, who are you?" I said, "I'm Mark Anthony Demolition." "Oh, yes, you're just the person we need." So I did ITV. And then somebody lurking in the background said, "I'm from BBC. Could you come and speak to us as well?" So yes, Chris Ford has just joined us. Morning all, another week flown by. Yeah, isn't it weird, eh? Isn't it weird that January seemed to last forever, and we're cracking on through February like it's not even there. Now, here's an interesting thing. Somebody over on Instagram goes by the name of Bollocks Chops. Anybody that read what did I call it in the end? I can't even remember what I called my Halloween story. But do you remember there was somebody in that called Bollock Chops? What did I call that book? I wrote it. You'd think I'd know, wouldn't you? On the news the other day, they claimed it was weakened and unsafe. I'd be very surprised if that wasn't the case. I mean, bear in mind fire damage for one thing. Obviously, it will have suffered a fair degree of water damage as a result of the efforts of the firefighters. And then, obviously, the building has been abandoned effectively for nearly 8 years, so there'll be no heating on there, so frost will have got in and so on down the line. So yes, I would imagine it is in a pretty poor state. But yeah, what did I call that book? Anybody remember? I even did a podcast thing about it. Anyway, I'll go and look it up while you're doing something else. Let me take Jim out of the way, just for the time being, because it is that time. Without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro. Oh, hang on a minute. Elite Dave 3 over on Instagram says, "I hate to interrupt. That's not a problem at all. But can you please let me know what the topics that you are covering? We do demolition and construction equipment by and large. If that's not your thing, I fully understand if you'd like to be elsewhere. Not a problem at all. But if you do like that kind of thing, we have got some pretty sexy stuff coming up, including some amphibious excavators if you're into that kind of thing. So stick around for that." Before I go over to the chat proper, this is the first opportunity I've had to use Lou Carney's new button. There you are. Lou Carney is here in the chat saying, "Hello, you beautiful people. It's Friday." She obviously means you beautiful people, I think. Can you all see that? Probably not. Let me just set that again. Let me do that again. Here we are. Here's Lou's button that says, "Good morning, Grandma Lou Carney." Elite Dave says, "I do work in construction, but I'm an electrician." We don't have a lot of that. We do occasionally cover electric machines, but we don't do a lot of electrician type stuff. Don't know. I can barely wire a plug, my friend. So, yeah, listen, stick around. You're more than welcome. If you decide to bail out, I fully understand. Anyway, time for the intro and the question of the day and all the usual stuff. Just an update on the Lucani family affairs. Love it, she says. Isaac Murphy's Isaac Murphy's baby is due next week, so I'll be a double granny. A double granny. Isn't a double granny a type of knot? Or did I just make that up? Don't know. But congratulations, Lou, in advance, and give Isaac my very, very best wishes. Yes, what is it? It is Friday. It is Friday, the 7th of February. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the walrus of demolition, the hostess with the mostest. In today's show, Allu is a step ahead. We've got some massive cat trucks going to work. Liebherr delivers the X-Power. We're going to get our tracks wet with some amphibious excavator action, and Caterpillar gears up for Bauma 2025. Plus, in my morning monologue, the financial imperative that is holding back demolition and construction. It's a familiar tale. I'm sure you'll all relate to it, but that's what it's going to be about. But before we get to all of that, we do have the small matter of the mystery machine in just a few seconds. Right, we've already had some answers in on our mystery machine, on our question of the day. I'll come back to those in a moment, but I do want to say good morning to Gary Muirhead, who was here at some ungodly hour this morning. He was actually here at 3:28 a.m. The man is quite clearly a lunatic, but good morning, Gary. Thank you very much. How are you still awake? I've no, or has there been kips in between? I really don't know. Yeah, mystery machine. Have I seen Dan in the chat? He was here before the show started, but I've not seen him since. So I'm going to show it to you quickly before he arrives and steals the limelight. Here we go. That is the machine I need you to identify. I'll tell you now, I mean, that's only a set of tracks. I have not interfered with this in any way, shape or form. The colour that you'll be able to see is the colour that it is. Nothing to do with me whatsoever. So if that helps at all, please... Yeah, let us have your guesses. Garvin at Mostly Diggers just joined us over on Instagram. We should probably get you on the show at some point, Garvin, you know. It's about time you made your guest appearance, I would say. While you're working that out, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to press the button to remind you of our question of the day. Yeah, we've gone food related again today. Maybe because I wouldn't say I'm necessarily on a diet, but I'm not eating a great deal at the moment, so I'm a bit fixated with food, so forgive me for that. Our question of the day today is this. You're about to sit down for a roast dinner, be it at home, in a restaurant, or even your local carvery. But given the choice, what meat are you going for? Personally, I don't really do red meat, and I'm not a huge fan of pork, never have been, probably never will be. Given the choice, I'm saying turkey. Turkey, yes, turkey. Like a dog, not just for Christmas. But what about you? We have had some answers here. Chris Ford, very specific. Slow cooked beef with horseradish sauce. I can get behind the horseradish sauce. Not so much of a fan of the beef. Jim Turner going for toss up between beef or pork, both equally as good. I'm going to have to take your word for it. I've never been a pork fan, and beef, take it or leave it. Somebody says, should we go out for steak? It's like, can we not go out for something else? Yeah, no, it's just me. To be honest, I don't really do roast dinners. I like foreign food too much. I like heavily herbed and spiced, and I do find roast dinners a bit... Yeah. Right, okay, let's go back to our mystery machine. What do we got? We've got Jim Turner going for a Wacker 3-ton Mini. It's not. Chris Ford going for a Takuchi TCR 50. It's not one of those either. Let's get Chris's comment out of the way, and I'll show you a bit more. There you are, a little bit more track. I don't know if that's a distinctive track, but it's a track nonetheless. Keep those guesses coming in. While you're doing that, I'm going to get things underway. What do we got here in the chat? Kerry Jones. Good morning, Kerry. I haven't seen you for bloody ages, mate. How are you doing? He says, chicken, turkey or beef? Definitely not pork. Well, I'm with you on the first two. There is a pub not a million miles away from where I'm sat now. It's right next to the Epsom Racecourse. If you watch the Derby coverage on the TV, there's a pub directly opposite called the Derby Arms. No great surprise there. The roast chicken they do there, oh, now we're talking. That's proper job. But good morning, Kerry. Thank you for being here. We're going to start things off with Allu. Allu, not Allu Gobi for Indian food fans out there, but Allu, the attachments maker.
Every journey in life starts with small steps. As the years go by, those steps become bigger. And as your journey unfolds, your experience grows, allowing you to be one step ahead. Allu is a family-owned company that designs and manufactures world-class screening products. With decades of experience, a strong focus on the customer, and keeping safety above all else, Allu strives to deliver the best customer experience possible. Do it the Allu way, and you'll always be one step ahead. Whether it's a mini excavator, skid steer loader, or 45-ton earth-moving equipment, we have a product for you. With over 100 different applications and the largest product offering on the market, Allu can provide you with a solution to increase productivity and save you time and money. The products are made with the highest quality standards and will get the job done even in tough working conditions or long hours. Through our strong partnerships and our nationwide dealer network, we can quickly deliver genuine spare parts and provide technical support and training every step of the way. Join us on this journey. Join the Allu family and stay one step ahead.
Quite a rousing film for a Friday, isn't it? I've just remembered. I did say that there was somebody over on Instagram going by the name of Bollock Chops. I had a character called Bollock Chops in the Halloween book or story that I wrote. But couldn't remember the name of the book. It was Gravedigger. Yes, Gravedigger. That's what it was called. How did I forget? How do you forget the name of a book that you wrote? on Stephen King. I wonder if he's done 70 odd. I wonder if he's ever forgotten the name of one of his books. Back to the Mystery Machine. As Chris Ford is having another stab, he's going for the JCB HTD 5. It is not one of those. Let me show you a smidge more. That's not really helpful at all, is it? It just means that the tracks have an end to them. But keep the guesses coming in. Lots and lots more to come on that. Let me get that out of the way because I need to play one of these. We've got some big cat trucks in a minute.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, Cat 794 trucks. What's not to love? Sit back and enjoy.
When Middlemount Coal was looking for a more efficient way to remove overburden at its operations in Queensland's Bowen Basin, the mine collaborated with their Hastings Deering Cat dealer to find the optimal truck for the site. Their priority was maximising truck payload without increasing overall weight. With an adjusted payload target of 305 tonnes capacity, the solution was a fleet of 6 new Cat 794s. End-to-end project delivery was carefully managed by the Hastings Deering Mackay team. Within a 2-month period in late 2021, all 6 794s were partly built on the Mackay equipment assembly pad by Cat trained technicians, then transported via truck convoy the 300 kilometres to Middlemount. Once on site, the assembly process was completed, with each truck assembled, tested and commissioned within a 10-day window. The result? The Cat 794s have met all management targets and are a favourite with the drivers who spend long hours in them. Utilising the Cat HE body, Middlemount's Cat 794s are hauling more loads every shift, travelling faster for longer and tackling grades with ease. A smart investment managed by Hastings Steering and their site-specific solution.
They are some big old trucks, are they not? Let's have a look at the mystery machine. Have we had any more guesses in on this? No, we haven't. So let me show you a little bit more. There you are. Does that help at all? Shall I give you a clue? This is probably not our usual fare. That's what I will say on this. See what you make of that. And we've got some X-Power wheel loaders from Liebherr coming up. So stick around when I find the right button to press.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Have I fooled you all on this one? Don't know. Don't know at all. Jim Turner's just gone for Mini Crusher, Red Rock, or something like that. Very close, sir. Very close. Keep the guesses coming. I tell you what, let me show you just a bit more. Actually, I don't need to show you anymore. Chris Ford. Chris Ford does seem to just come up every once in a while and have a win. He's done it again. He says it's a Red Rhino 5,000 Crusher, and he is absolutely right. That's exactly what it is. Congratulations, Chris. Let me take that out of the way and show everybody. There you are. That was why I was only showing you the tracks. I thought I could sneak that past you, but apparently not. The eagle-eyed, well, both Jim and Chris managed to figure that out. And Kerry Jones, just 1 minute too late. It also says Red Rhino as well. But Chris Ford, you get the 3 points today. So it currently stands that Dan Cullen has got 9 points. Peter McKenna has got 3, and Chris Ford has got 3. So yeah. So it's going to be a tight one this year. Oh, this month. So yeah, keep watching for more mystery machines coming up. So what do we got next? Yes, I was promising you some X-Power from Liebherr. Here we are. Looks pretty damn cold there. Northern Sweden, before anybody asks. Very, very cold up that part of the world. We're going to get wet. That was getting cold. We're going to get wet in just a moment with some amphibious excavators all the way from China. Back after this. Jim has just commented on the X-Power film. Not filling that bucket very much. I didn't notice, but I wonder, was the ground frozen? Well, it happens. In northern Sweden, it happens. Maybe that was an... I'm just trying to give the guy an out, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, amphibious excavators. And I've got to be honest with you on these. Amphibious excavators, I find them half fascinating, half horrifying. Not from a seasickness point of view, although I think there may be a bit of that. They never look quite like they're designed to stay upright. But hey, they're enjoyable to watch. So here we are. Here's some amphibious excavators for your viewing pleasure. Yeah, so that is an amphibious excavator, as I'm sure you're all very aware. I was actually watching a film last night of somebody operating one of those in Arkansas, out in the middle of the boondocks. Absolutely amazing work. We've got one more film for you today, which is related to Caterpillar at Bauma. So we'll be right back after this. Yeah, thanks as always to MB Crusher for sponsoring our Mission to Munich series of films. Next film up is Caterpillar at Bauma. Now, this is a conversation between two people. They're discussing what is going to be at Bauma. Obviously, Caterpillar is one of the biggest stands there. Never quite as big as Liebherr, but certainly one of the biggest and certainly one of the most attractive as well. One of the interviewees is actually... He's very French, but he speaks English. And listen, tune your brain into Le Francais, and I'm sure you'll be fine. This is what Caterpillar will have on display at Bauma.
Behind the scenes, there's a huge organization within Caterpillar, really bringing together all of that expertise across the globe to develop this experience.
We will be in all B6, as usual, I will say, but the stand will be different. Different for three reasons. The first one is that we have updated all the product range for the last 2-3 years with the latest technologies, and we will showcase around 45 machines on the stand with all the work tools. But not only 45 machines, Kim, I think.
Yeah, we're creating a bit more space to improve that visitor experience. So that allows visitors then, when they come on the stand, that they'll be able to find the experts that they want to speak to and find out that information. And then also what we do have is that whole new digital experience for those customers that can't come or those visitors that aren't able to come to Bauma, that they'll feel that they're part of the show floor itself.
So that will be at the heart of the stand, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So nobody can miss it.
No, definitely not missing it, no.
Cool. And I would say the third reason is that Caterpillar will celebrate 100 years of innovation, 100 years of partnership with dealers and customers, 100 years of success.
There are approximately 100 people working across 20 different projects. We work very closely with our partner Zeppelin, who bring in that wealth of experience of many, many years of Bauma. We also have all of those team members that we're bringing in around the globe. They have been working for many years on large projects or large events such as ConExpo, Bauma China, Bauma Munich, CSPI, all different shows all around the world. And they're all bringing all of that wealth of knowledge and that expertise then to Bauma to really help to develop that visitor's experience.
So if you can't go to Munich to visit the cat stand, we will move the cat stand to your living room.
And I hope you have a big enough living room to accommodate all of those machines, Valerie. But if you don't, we are developing a whole experience on cat.com and on our social media channels to really help bring all of the latest news and information direct from the show floor to your living room. Please make sure that you keep an eye on cat.com and on our social media channels to find out all of the latest information, both before, during and after Bauma. We look forward to seeing you either in person on the stand or also digitally then on cat.com.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to pull out of that. First of all, the fact that they've allowed more space this time is great news, because finding your way around the Caterpillar stand at Bauma normally is like hell on earth. It's the hardest stand to film, partly because it's quite dimly lit, but it's absolutely rammed with people. So a bit more space would be handy. The other point that I would throw in, the fact that they're going to be live streaming it, or they're going to be broadcasting from the stand. Obviously, I'm going to be in Germany for an entire week, so I won't be doing this show. I will be blasting stuff up on Instagram and places like that, but I won't be doing this show. So if you want to get a flavour of Bauma from a Caterpillar perspective, maybe cat.com is the way forward. Let's have a look. I'll come back to Jim in a second. Going back to my question today, any of them, but ordering pork in the pub makes people look as I always wear a Star of David. Yeah. You don't eat pigs and we don't eat pigs. Why not eat pigs together? Oh, whatever. Tim Minchin. Lou Carney says, question of the day, lamb, beef, chicken, pork in that order. Okay. Now, this has been something of a mystery. I actually went to the source and they couldn't tell me. Jim Turner is quite a fan of our MB Crusher intro to our mission to Munich, and he's found the name of the song, apparently. Apparently it's called The Spark by Cabin Crew. Is it? This is why he's gone hunting for it. I'm going to play it for you one more time because he's quite a fan of this, and this is for Jim. Yeah, I should be charging MB Crusher double for that. They've had their advert on twice today. Mick says, despite the Star of David, nothing better than a bacon bagel. Well, I like bacon. I like a bagel. But for me, salt beef all day long. Salt beef bagel, absolutely. If I left now, I could probably be in Brick Lane by about lunchtime. Tempting. Anywho, people, that's about it for the main part of the Smalley show. It's also that for the week as well. That's Friday done and dusted. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying, and also to go over to my morning monologue as well. If you can't stick around, then please do stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and I hope to see you again very soon. Monday would be good. I'll be here. I hope you will be. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back in just a moment after a year. Those working in the field of demolition are known by various names. They're demolishers, wreckers, enablers, and facilitators. But there is one overarching umbrella term that truly encapsulates what demolition is all about. They're problem solvers. Got a building you want removed? Demolition's got you covered. Got a structure filled with asbestos and other toxins? Demolition has a solution. Want a bridge taken down overnight? All in a day's work. The demolition industry employs men and women with a unique mix of technical know-how and street smarts. Give them a challenge and they will rise to it, and then they'll overcome it. But there's a problem. For all their versatility, adaptability, and problem-solving capabilities, demolition often collides with a pair of opposing forces: time and money. Come to think of it, in construction terms, they both mean the same thing. Time is money. And this is where the problems become insurmountable and beyond the control of even the most innovative demolition contractor. If a demolition contractor was consulted on the best and most practical demolition method, and if their expert opinion was actually heeded, that contractor would allow themselves plenty of time to do the work in the safest and most professional manner possibly. Sadly, that's not often the case. The demolition firm is instead presented with an arbitrary timeline that suits everyone except the demolition professionals and their health and safety advisor. And their advice and methodology is paid precious little heed. If a demolition contractor was asked to devise a methodology in which there would be zero accidents guaranteed, they could do that too. They could utilize autonomous or remotely controlled machines while the men and women were safely and securely located yards or even miles from the danger zone. But autonomous and remotely controlled machines come at a cost, and using them would be more meticulous. And in the construction sector, meticulous is just a fancy word for far too slow and much too expensive. If a demolition contractor was asked to set the environmental tone for a major construction project, they would happily invest in electric machines to carry out large parts of the works, thereby eliminating both noise and exhaust emissions from the very outset. But again, electric machines carry a hefty premium. Despite their rhetoric on sustainability, developers and contractors prioritize short-term profits over long-term environmental responsibility and stewardship. And therein lies the crux of the matter. Everyone wants, or claims they want, the maximum possible safety, the lowest possible emission levels, and the highest degree of sustainability. But given the choice, everyone chooses profit over safety and sustainability. And this is about to become an even greater stumbling block. The demolition industry is at a crossroads of such magnitude that even the word demolition could vanish from our vocabulary. There's a desire to replace demolition with deconstruction, a process by which a structure is carefully picked apart, its constituent parts harvested and stored to be used in an entirely new structure. And we're not talking here about crashing everything down to 6F2 and flogging it as fill. We're talking about salvaging slabs and beams and then deploying them elsewhere. Now, modern professional demolition contractors have that capability in their locker. They have the technical know-how and they have the equipment. Many of the finest demolition contractors are also adept at finding a market for salvaged materials. If there was an economic incentive to do so, I am positive they could devise a way of harvesting, storing, and selling huge great lumps of buildings and structures. But will they be given the chance? The current and prevailing mindset within the construction sector is that demolition should get a building or a structure on the floor as quickly and as cheaply as possible. And that runs counter to the notion of picking apart major structural elements for use elsewhere. The construction industry has become so geared to improbable or impossible deadlines The construction industry has become geared to improbable or impossible deadlines upon completion at any cost, even if that cost is to the planet. Like a skilled surgeon looking at the body of an organ donor, demolition contractors know precisely what to harvest and how. They know which parts are the most valuable and that they could quickly identify recipients just crying out for those constituent parts. Unfortunately for those in construction, the focus is not on salvaging valuable materials. It's on the ticking clock by which they calculate their profits. They prefer to just get the body in the ground so they can go about their business. And nothing as inconsequential as saving the planet is going to stand in their way. And ironically, in environmental terms, construction's constant pursuit of the quickest and cheapest might ultimately cost the earth. Literally. There you are. There's my final thought for the day, which is my final thought for the week. See, there is a lot of outcry over the upcoming statement regarding Grenfell. There's a strange thing here, right? And, bearing in mind I am of the media, when I first reported on the fact that a decision was imminent about 3 weeks ago, and at that time I was questioning which demolition or what demolition contractor would actually want the project. And in absolute truth, I'm being slightly disingenuous with that because, if it's £1 million or a couple of £1 million to take down Grenfell, bearing in mind all the time that's required, I'm sure they'll be queuing out the door. But at the time, it seemed like Angela Rayner and her minions were handling the situation in a sensible way. The first report that I got about she'd had a meeting with I think local community leaders and possibly some of the bereaved families. And literally hot off the press, the first report that I saw was, residents said how well she'd handled the situation, how sensitive and understanding she'd been, and, how they appreciated her reaching out and telling them in advance of telling everybody else that the thing was coming down. But since then, everything seems to suggest that's not what happened at all. Peter McKenna very kindly sent me a link to, I think it was a Channel 5 news piece this morning, whereby apparently she got angry and was ushered away. Now, I've heard two versions. Now, knowing Angela Rayner, not personally, but knowing Angela Rayner as, we've seen her on the TV, her getting angry doesn't surprise me in any way, shape or form, because she has form in that area. I don't know what the absolute truth is. I really don't. But going back to Mick's point here, there is a lot of outcry over the upcoming statement on Grenfell. This is one of those situations, I think, damned if you do, damned if you don't. as I said at the top of the show, the Grenfell Tower will have been greatly damaged by fire, by water damage, by being empty and dilapidated for the last nearly 8 years, and so on down the line. If they decided to leave it precisely as it was and a chunk of it fell off and injured somebody or killed somebody, there'd be outcry. If you're going to take it down, there's outcry. If you're going to demolish it, regardless of the method, there will be outcry. It is a no-win situation, which again brings me back to my questioning of who would want the project. I said yesterday, I think it's going to be so closely scrutinised. Anybody taking a selfie of themselves within the vicinity, it'll cause outcry and upset and anguish and everything else. Just cannot imagine the hoops they're going to have to jump through. So going back to my piece about structural demolition and stuff, I'm all for it. Loads of structurally sound girders, sheets and other steel just get snipped up on a demo job. Reforming that steel takes a lot of energy. Yes, it does. It does. I was in a meeting. I don't want to tell you who was involved in the meeting because that's I wasn't sworn to secrecy, but it's not for public consumption. But I was in a meeting earlier this week, and we were talking about these very things. One of the things that struck me was, I won't bore you with the whole backstory, but the National Federation of Demolition Contractors, NFDC, legend has it was formed to bring down unsafe, bomb-damaged buildings during the Blitz. The legend also says that Winston Churchill himself gave the order. Whether that's true or not doesn't really matter. But effectively, the Londoners were facing an existential threat from buildings that were toppling and bits were falling off them and stuff. So an order went out to say, okay, you demolition boys in London, get your collective heads together and let's get these buildings down in a safe and rapid manner. To make this salvaging of entire chunks of buildings work needs, in my opinion at least, a similarly collective effort. There's no point in somebody doing a little bit over here and maybe they've got a few, I don't know, as Jim describes them, a bit of girder or a bit of sheeting or a bit of floor slab or whatever it might be, and there's somebody over here who's got something similar. What it needs is effectively a marketplace. And it doesn't need to even be necessarily a physical marketplace. Imagine if you are taking down, let's not use Grenfell as an example because I think that will be treated very differently, but you're taking down your average warehouse or just an office building, and you've got the constituent parts that you can salvage. Though there should be a system whereby they can be uploaded to a website, so that those that are in the process of specifying or building a building go on there and say, oh, yeah, we'll have a bit of that and we'll have a bit of that. Now, those bits that they're pointing at might actually come from a McGee job, an Erith job, an AR demolition job, an Armac job, a Downwell demolition job, but they have been told, they've uploaded, much as you would on Facebook Marketplace. We have got these constituent parts. They're available for collection or delivery at extra cost, whatever it might be. But for that to happen, we can't continue with people operating in silos. It needs to be a collective effort, and not just a collective effort for London, but a collective effort for the entire country. And again, it gives us an opportunity, in my opinion, to lead the way. If we were to do that, we could set the example to say, the Dutch and the Swedes and the Norwegians and the Danes and the Americans and the Australians, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going about aiding sustainability and carbon emission reduction, because we have created an online marketplace for constituent parts of buildings that are readily available. The embodied carbon that everybody is so excited about is still within it. Yes, we have expended some carbon to get those elements out, but nowhere near as much as we would have done if we were just chopping them up and then sending them into 6F2. You can't trust the government or the mainstream media. They all piss in the same pot. They do. I was listening to a thing yesterday. It was vaguely pro-Trump. which, slightly made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. But what they were saying, I don't know if anybody else has heard this, but Donald Trump has handed down an edict whereby, both he and his various staff, his press officer or whatever, I can't remember, press liaison lady, there's a room in the White House where they gather, lectern at the front, and all the press gather. Donald Trump has insisted that the room is made bigger, and not just bigger, but right there at the front, where one of the chiefs of staff used to sit, is now going to be the seat for a member of what he describes as the new media. YouTubers, podcasters, TikTokers, Instagrammers. I'm not expected to get an invite myself, but I think it's a realization, and I don't suppose for one moment this has come directly from Mr. Trump himself, but it's a realization that the legacy media, it's losing the battle. I think it's losing the battle for ratings, which I know he gets awfully excited about, but it's also losing the battle for credibility. Because I think in recent years, it's become so clear of the political leanings of the various newspapers and TV channels. You can literally sit on and watch TV, flick on one channel, so-and-so said this is an outrage. Flick on another, so-and-so said this, which was entirely justified. Whereas if you've got a YouTuber or a podcaster, and I do think particularly podcasters, things like we're doing now, I could cover something in 20 seconds like they do on the news, or I can sit here and talk about it for 20 minutes. You get more depth out of that 20 minutes. And I also think there's another point to be had there as well. Authenticity. I'm not going to use myself as an example, but, you do get people on Instagram who are very much, oh, yeah, you can't keep that up. So, people are going to see through that. And I do think, if there was one thing I would agree that Donald Trump did way better than Kamala Harris, was he was going on these podcasts and he was being very Donald Trump. Whereas she went on and you got the impression that she'd been handed questions in advance and they were very well rehearsed, fantastic answers. But they never felt particularly real. Whereas Donald Trump, warts and all, you kind of get what you're expecting. And I think the general public has become attuned and wise to the vagaries of the media and obviously to politicians as well. They say one thing and they mean quite another. Mick says, if a building catches fire, it's demolished at the earliest time possible. Watching last night's news, I was surprised at the amount of people going on about prosecutions and not the elephant in the room and laying in the corner was compensation. Yeah. As I say, I mean, I've done four radio newspaper interviews. Nobody has asked me about the actual reasoning behind the demolition. It's that they either come in, they're coming in to appear supportive of the families, which is understandable, and I believe I'm supportive of the families as well. But they're coming at it from, oh yes, the demolition will cause outrage. Have you stopped to think why they're demolishing it? The fact that it might actually be unsafe and unstable. Have you bothered to ask that, or are you just looking for the soundbite that says demolition expert says fuck to the families, get on with the demolition, there's money to be made? Is that really what you're looking for? Mick says, it was also said that there was thousands of props in place. Structural engineers said 3 to 4 years ago it has to come down. Given the weight of these props in a building that is deemed dangerous, and it's a disaster waiting to happen. And if it does, then there will be more deaths. Yeah, and listen, I said this yesterday. I am not Angela Rayner's biggest fan by any means, as far as I'm concerned. She's a mouthy northern bint, but that's just my personal opinion. Sorry, Angela, if you're tuning in, but that's just the way I feel. But what I would say is that is the absolute truth. And if she had bowed to the wokeism and said, oh, yes, it must stand as a memorial. We must have it as a constant reminder of the failings of the construction industry and the procurement process and everything. And then a lump fell off and killed a kid. Why risk it? Why risk it? Hang on a minute. Jim says the blame points to councils, governments trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's tap. That'll be an ear, I would guess. Taking old tower blocks and trying to make them look like like new buildings, so the skyline looks shiny, new, and successful. Yeah, but I think that's kind of a self-perpetuating thing with that, isn't it? Because obviously, building regulations and thermal regulations and emissions regulations are changing at such a pace that something that you build today will probably be considered beyond its practical use in 20 years' time. Because I've mentioned this before, the old Sun and News of the World building down at Fortress Wapping. It was built as a state-of-the-art publishing and print facility, fortune spent on it, and it was revolutionary because you had the journalists and the print presses in the same building. Never used to happen, but they consolidated everything in there. And 25 years after they opened it to huge fanfare, everyone looked at it and went, well, we can do fuck all with that. We're going to have to take it down. They'd overbuilt it, they'd over-engineered it. There was, and bearing in mind, when it was built, we were talking print presses and probably typewriters and stuff like that. 25 years later, everything was computerized. It rendered itself out of date before it had reached its natural sell-by date. So, it is, and with that, the lumps that came out of that would have been unusable. Because, the floors were huge bloody slabs, huge solid slabs to support the weight of these huge, multi-ton print presses. It was good for nothing, so they brought it down. So there's my feeling anyway. I thought I had something I was going to tell you. I can't remember what it was. That will probably do us. I will be back here on Monday morning. I've got another full week of shows next week. I will warn you in advance that on the 28th of February, I will be up in Leeds for the Institute of Demolition Engineers spring seminar. Spring in February. People need to check their timings, I think. But yeah, looking forward to that. Obviously, Adrian McLean now the IDE president, so looking forward to hanging out with him. Hopefully, John Woodward will be there as well. I know what I was going to tell you. I spoke to the Times newspaper yesterday. I've not had a chance to look, to be honest, but I spoke to the Times newspaper yesterday, and there is an article supposedly in the Times today. I don't know if I'm quoted in it. I may be. I'm not entirely sure. But after they spoke to me, they actually said, is there anybody else that we can speak to? I put them on to John Woodward. He's spoken to them as well. So that article, if you fancy reading a bit more about Grenfell, hopefully the Times will have it today. You can sign up for a free trial on their website. I don't know what the website is. I'm not in the process of, or not in the business of advertising the legacy media. They didn't pay me to be in their newspaper, so why the hell should I give them any free advertising? But if you want to know a bit more about it, you can probably find that over there. Mick says, over the years, I've been involved in temporary works and propping with acros and steel frames, but any engineer will tell you, no matter what calculations are made, a dangerous building such as Grenfell will only stay up if the actual structure can take the added works. Yeah. 100% agree. And again, one of the things that I said, I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday afternoon, is buildings don't get better. If they're, obviously there is fire damage, there's probably water damage, there's probably frost damage by now as well. It will not be healing itself. It will not be getting any better. So even if it's in a poor but acceptable state today, it will be in a worse state tomorrow and the day after. Jim Turner says, I bet there's a spray on foam type stuff that would have given the same rating as the cladding, but it would have looked like the same dated building, so that wouldn't do. Yeah. I think I do think it runs deeper than that, and I realise this will be of scant consolation to the bereaved families. But if there is any good to come, and I can't imagine there would, but if it was any good to come from the preventable deaths of 72 people in that fire, it should be a complete rewriting of building control and procurement control as well. because that was that situation, the cladding that was chosen, how it was sold. That's what's to blame. And it was allowed to happen by local government, by national government, but also by the construction industry. We've built ourselves a system whereby that kind of thing can take place, and that needs to change. Desperately needs to change. Dan Cullen's just arrived. You missed the mystery machine, Dan, I'm afraid. And our friend Wolfie has just said, "Good morning." Also, question of the day answer: venison. Venison, expensive taste. Although I don't know what the cost of venison is in the States, but expensive over here. But nobody went for venison apart from our friend Wolfie. Good morning to you, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Unfortunately, that's me done. That's me done for another week. So I'm going to go and get my newsletter for tomorrow ready for. Dan Cullen says, "Who won? I can tell you. Chris Ford won today, and he identified that the Red Rhino 5000. It's an RR 5000 from the fine folks at Red Rhino." One final point, says Mick: "Steel that's been damaged in a fire is a lower price than cut-up steel, so whoever does this job will have a lot to think about in costing." They will have so much to think about in costing. Even things like, you've just mentioned steel, but imagine, the traditional thing with a top down, which I'm assuming it's going to be a top down, would be, break out the floor, shove it down the lift shaft, collect it at the bottom, and away it goes. My guess is that the off-sighting of that material will have to be monitored, so that it doesn't fall into the hands of ghoulish eBayers and stuff like that, selling bits of the tragic tower and stuff. There's going to be so much to think about. Additional security, make sure nobody gets in and has a poke around with a video camera. I would imagine community liaison will be an absolute logistical nightmare. Virtually nothing will be able to be done without sitting down with community leaders and saying, okay, the next phase is going to be this, and this is how it's going to work. Is everyone good with that? It really is going to be a very, very tough one. Jim Turner says, how it would have worked: a static drawing of a brand new boot-looking building would have been produced, and someone said, yes, that's what we want. Yeah. That's exactly the way it works. And listen, I think when you go, I think historic buildings are one thing. There's some lovely bits of London, well, not just London, but London's my nearest. Lovely bits of London where it's all very oldie-worldy and Victorian or pre-Victorian and stuff like that. But I think we are in, particularly in the city where you're talking about flashy office blocks and Canary Wharf and places like that, it is, if it's not shiny and new, it doesn't count. So get it down and replace it with something that is shiny and new. Dan Cullen says, have a wonderful weekend, guys. Friday wasn't the same without you, Dan, but thank you very much indeed. I'm going to call it a day. As I say, I'm going to go and do a newsletter to send out on LinkedIn tomorrow morning as a reminder of all the stuff that we've discussed this week. If you are on LinkedIn, you can take a look at that. If you're not, you've probably seen it here anyway, so I wouldn't bother too much if I were you. Until on Monday, please, everybody, look after yourselves. I'd like a full contingent of everyone back on Monday morning for yet more of the same. I'll see you then.